There
Am
he
I
is.
up now?
You are. There
You
he is.
are.
I'm sorry about the bins, boys, but it's a very small, I've got the camera up here and the missus has just sorted it all out. So if anything goes wrong, it's her fault. All right?
How are you, mate? You keeping well?
Yeah, all good. Bored, rigid, but all good. It's difficult times, isn't it, for all of us? But just trying to contemplate what's in store. But it's difficult. We're just waiting for everybody's guidelines, aren't we?
Yeah. Well, have you heard any insight, Tone? Obviously, with the Premiership, with Sky, they're saying about behind closed doors or anything, or is it just getting moved back and put on the side again?
If I tell you, will you keep it to yourself, Keith?
Well, there's only three people that watch the show. No.
Keep it between me, you, and Dave. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Yeah. No worries.
No, I haven't got a clue, mate. Well, I mean, we're just sitting waiting, but I just heard you talking about the National League, and it's very difficult, not just for the Premier League, but for the EFL and then downwards as well. I'm just so pleased that from steps 3 down to 7, we had the early shout, because now we can start planning, or not planning, but sort of trying to contemplate what's ahead, because it's difficult times. Got a lot of money to raise for the football club. How we're going to raise it without clubhouses, without bars and things like that. But difficult times, but challenging times. But I can assure you, our club, Walton Casuals, will be up and running and ready to go.
How's it affected you? Obviously, you mentioned, Tone, most people, or some people, obviously forget that your connection with Walton Casuals. Obviously, only know you for you and the legends that you do yourself. But obviously, the abrupt from last season, I'm glad you said it was the right thing, because there's still some people that didn't think it was. But from someone that has to deal with all the finances and that, just explain why you think it had to finish when it did.
Oh, it was an absolute nightmare, a logistical nightmare. Talking to the guys at the FA, which I'm privileged to know, and you boys are as well. But you was talking about all the permutations, points per game, things like that. Obviously, we ourselves were in the relegation spots, but we thought we were turning a corner with 9-10 games to go. Results were getting closer. No one can gauge form. No one can gauge injuries. No one can gauge suspensions. What's going to happen? No one can gauge quite anything. So I think if you have a look historically, within the last 10 games, 9-10 games of any league, let alone our leagues down below, things change so dramatically. So how you can say, oh, we're top of the league, we're going up, and they're second from bottom, they're going down, I don't know. For us, 3 down to 7, it works. I understand all the problems that guys have got trying to get into the, Division 2 and everything like that. But as it creeps closer and closer, as you said, Keith, when are we going to get underway? We haven't got a clue. How are we going to do it? Are we going to do it behind closed doors? Are we going to have no peoples in our bars? Are we going to have no ways of fundraising and doing functions, which I do for the club? It's so difficult. So we're edging closer, but I think, like everyone, I think the FA and everybody are waiting for the government guidelines. Then we will go from there.
Well, someone just asked Tony, said you must ask Tony if Barrow should go up.
Well, you would say, obviously, you'd say yeah, because they're at the top of the league. But you ask anyone in the conference or teams just below them who've got to play them, and reversing of placing can happen. Have they got key players injured? Have they not got key players injured? Changing of form. Obviously, on the season to date, yes, they should go up. But we've seen how teams have blown it in the past. We've seen our teams have come from quite a way back and got in playoffs or even won championships or leagues. So it's very, very difficult. I think you have to play a season out for it to be, yeah, you should go up. That's my opinion. But that's nothing against Barrow, who've had a fantastic season.
I agree. And what's your opinion? And this is, I think that the National League are looking at it, Tony. Look, same as what the suggestion last week about the EFL about, the top 8 player mini league. If you just look at the EFL, they're saying about Wycombe being 8 and Coventry being top. With this long layoff, how can that, if you're all back on a level playing field, but just because Coventry were flying at the time, doesn't mean they're going to now. And the same certain thing with Barrow and Wealdstone and all things like that. Would you be a bit, if you was one of the teams that are at the top, you'd be thinking, look, I've still got a chance to get promoted. But could you, if it didn't work out for you, could you sit there and think, oh, maybe not?
Well, it's so difficult, and I mean, if you've had a really good season up to date and you are at the top, of course you're going to say, "Yeah, I want to finish it off." Of course you are, and at the bottom, I mean, personally for us, I mean, I thought we would have got out of the situation because I could see the form turning round, but there's no saying we would have. But it is so difficult to say how a season would pan out. It is impossible to say. I understand everything, but when you're talking about non-league clubs, we ain't the Premier League. We ain't going to go off into an hotel and all the Premier League teams stay off in an hotel and play in neutral grounds and behind closed doors and get £1 billion at it. We're not going to do that. Everybody, towards this end of the season, for instance, how much does home advantage cost you? Because I was saying non-league, it's even more. We would never have got beaten at VCD a couple of years ago if it was away from home, Keith, would we?
No. Not in that game. You wouldn't have. What game that was?
5-0 we got beat, didn't we? no, but it's such a difference, isn't it? We've got a 4G pitch. Look at that, for instance. The advantages and disadvantages, and I argue the toss about that. Our pitch is the same every week. Then all of a sudden we have to go and play on a bumpy and crap pitch at some other team where we can't play football because we do like playing football, and then we're at a disadvantage. Very difficult, but the EFL are in a difficult position, I think, because they're in that. I think it's just important that everyone survives. I really do. Yeah. And I don't think we're looking at a who goes up and who goes down situation. I think we could be looking at a complete restructure at non-league level next season, judging by other chairmen that I speak to and understanding the problems that we have, or I have, being chairman of our football club. And more local games for us would be ideal. We spent about 11 grand on travel last year. That is a hell of a... So we got to spend 11 grand before we start the season, let alone our pitch, facilities, referees, linesmen, things like that. So you're looking at a lot of money. And I think players just played a game thinking they want a few quid more at our level. And it's going to be very difficult. We will find, Keith, you will find at the level below, and I will find that we will have better players next season because there's 1,000 players out of contract this summer.
Yeah.
And there's going to be a trickle-down effect from EFL teams to National League teams, Level 3 teams, down to Level 4 teams and places like that. And hopefully they will see the light that they're going to want less money. Because if Premier League players are going to get less money, certainly the non-league players are. So they're going to want to showcase their ability. So they'll be looking for clubs that maybe showcase what they can give. And that's what I would say to players. Think about your club rather than your money at the moment and where you can showcase your ability, because there's not going to be as many jobs to play for in that football league.
Well, I was going to work the other day and I heard there was a conversation going on where they were saying that teams in like the EFL, he said some of the players there they were recommending that they actually went out and looked for another job just so that they had the situation of something to fall back on. If there wasn't, they reckon they're going to start cutting all the squads back and all the rest of it because of what's going on. That they might need to, some of them might need to go and look for a job just as a backup.
Yeah, I think that was Gary Neville who said that, Dave.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good analogy to make, because obviously you have to have a good job first, and then football's got to be your fun thing, and then if you get a good break from it, then you could get yourself back into the leagues. I think it's a good point that he made there, because there's going to be less money available for these guys, but then again, there's going to be less jobs, whatever they're doing, isn't there?
That's right. How's Walton Casuals getting through this time, Tony? Obviously, with no functions and obviously rent out on your 3G pitch, etc.
We're all right on the 3G pitch because we rent ours from the council, Keith. So ours is not owned by us; it's owned by the council. So we're not in a bad situation because we're not having to pay any rent at the moment because we're not using the pitches, and probably we're going to have to look at other options where to train during the summer when we go back for a pre-season, if and when it's announced. So just train in local parks and things like that, rather than hiring out our own facility, which is going to cost however much an hour. But all these things are going to have to taken in mind by chairman, by people like yourself, managers. It's going to take the managers to have a little bit of understanding where we are as chairman, because it's you guys keep coming to us saying, oh, so-and-so wants 20, 30 quid more, and this geezer wants 20 quid a goal and all that. But well, that would have saved me a fortune last year, because we didn't get many goals, actually. But you know, it's going to take a lot of understanding, chairman, with managers, with players, all the way down. But as I'm looking at it from a chairman, it's not just our first team, it's how we developed as a football club with our academy, which has got 50 kids in it now, 2 ladies teams, and now we've got a preparatory group for the academy as well. So we're looking to enlarge the club on that scale at the same time, because it's all about community.
How have you recruited the academy? Because it's normally, when the lockdown happened, that was when all the trials and that were starting, weren't they?
Yeah, well, we got kids from last season on their college and university courses, so that they've obviously been retained. But we just started the trials, and you're right, and then it all went off. But we've been doing a lot of online stuff, so a lot of online applications, all this kind of stuff has been going on all the time. Online, bit of training for the players. But it's funny with the players, because we don't give out any contracts. You'll be doing all this online training, give them all the time of day, then all of a sudden, 2 weeks from the start of the season, they go and sign for another club, wouldn't they? Yeah. But it's very difficult. But what you got to hope is that you got the understanding of everyone. But the academy is going brilliantly. We're really, really pleased with that.
That's great. And look, we were just talking to Sam. I don't know if you heard any of that, Tony.
Yeah, I did. What a lovely lad he was, wasn't he?
What a goalkeeper, mate. What a goalkeeper he is. Yeah. But we were sort of saying, and obviously, you know, about next season, and obviously talking to a chairman sort of thing, you know, I haven't really sat down discussions with my chairman, because he's sort of going, well, I don't know what's going on. But what have you started making plans for Walton Casuals yet?
Well, we have, in terms of how we're going to raise the money. What have we as a board and me and 5 other members on it? How are we going to do it? Because we can't do these fundraising functions that we've been talking about. So we got quite a few ideas that we've been knocking about, which I ain't going to tell you, because you'll be nicking them.
Yeah. You know me too well now.
No, but it's all good. It's like, I think we got what we're doing is I'm lucky, because I've got obviously the professional background. Yeah. I've got a lot of connections with pro clubs. And I think that the pro clubs, when they're sending players out, level 3 is probably the lowest level that they send their youngsters out, you know, under 23s, under 19s or whatever. So we're having a lot of talks, a lot of discussions with the pro clubs now. So I think you'll find a lot of clubs will be looking down that avenue to be not only helping their team, but helping the pro clubs make the players stronger, and players actually playing with men instead of playing what I call academy football in the academies, where they're just passing and for the sake of it, go and play up against a few men and learn the ropes.
So with those sort of, like, you know, pro clubs sending players down, does that help Walton Casuals because of yourself, because of your contacts and stuff, and, you know, being the type of gentleman that you are? Does that actually help?
Yeah, I couldn't fib. Yeah, I know a few people in the game. Don't know, obviously, because I've been in it a long time. But it's obviously the people that you're sending them to, and the way that you play the football, that convinces them. Yeah. You know, you might be midway in the table or at the bottom, but if you're playing the right football, they're prepared to send the kids there to learn, because they're playing a passing game, but at the same time just learning other sides and other facets of the game that you've got to be a man. Yeah. Because, you know, I mean, I was 16 when I was in the first team at Fulham, but you don't really get 16. You very rarely get 16-year-olds now in the first team. You're talking about kids coming in at 20 and then calling them youngsters. But, you know, if we can get some 18-year-olds down at our place, 17, 18-year-olds, and put them in with some experienced players. Keith, you'll know this as a manager. You can't sling them all in together. You've got to sling them in with some experienced boys, some good non-league heads. And, you know, when I came into non-league after pro football, I'd like to think I had a bit of an influence on some of the non-league boys that I was playing with, and I certainly got a lot of things off of them because they were fantastic lads, and they taught me about football after pro football, if you like.
Do you think, obviously, again, putting your Walton Casuals head on and not the pro game, because we keep obviously having a go at the pro game, but especially at a time like this, and I know that some money was released to the National League early from the Premier League. Do you think now that not just the government, but some money should start trickling down to steps 3 and 4 and 5?
Without a doubt. I mean, we never get a mention, do we? You would think that, I used to think there was no mention for teams outside the Premier League. Now, all of a sudden, it's gone from Premier League to Championship, EFL, whatever you want to call it. And all of a sudden, National League, North and South have got a mention. But there is football beyond that. And there should be a kind of trickle-down effect. But I think although there's no prize money involved for getting into Conference South or Conference North, that's the next step for us. That is the kind of promised land that all of a sudden you're being talked about in that domain, really, because no, I think it's wrong. I think you're exactly right. We should be saving our football all the way round, and there should be, an amount for, okay, if Conference, say the National League gets more and Conference South gets the second most, then the third level, then the fourth level, like that. But there should be a trickle down effect. You're exactly right.
I know there's got to be a cut-off point, but if you're good enough to enter the FA Cup, then at the moment they should be looking at you a little bit. Grounds like us and yourself, Tom, when you obviously had to get the funding for your new ground, the FA were quite stringent on what you had to have to play at that level and above. But when times like this, I just think they ignore that a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, what we went through was L&I Water to get our new ground, and that wasn't the new ground that we got until the council came in, and we got this fabulous new ground that we got now called the Hub, which is I don't know if you boys have been down there, but it's fantastic.
We come and played you one of the first games, yeah.
Yeah, I think we beat you that time, didn't we?
That was about 5-0.
No. You beat us once, we beat you once. That's all right. But no, but it's a fabulous place, and and players appreciate that kind of place, don't they?
Yeah.
And there could be more of those places. And whilst there's many detractors from, a 4G pitch, as you boys know, there's nothing worse than going playing on a crap pitch away from home at the end of the season on a dust bowl, when all you can do is ping it in the channels, turn people round, and just play for throw-ins and corners. At least on a 4G pitch, you can play a passing game and you can play the same way week in, week out. So I'm all for 4G pitches, really. And I know it's a big subject, but not in the league level where they can afford it. But at our level, yes.
I'll let Dave answer that. We've just had our pitch done today, Tone, and our pitch was beautiful at the end of the year.
Yeah. Well, you're I would say you're in a minority, Keith.
Yeah, I know.
If you're honest, if you're honest about it, when I go, I've been loads of non-league grounds down to level 5. I think I've been to, where we were, and honestly, it was you put Dennis Bergkamp out there and he couldn't play football, let alone, level 5 players at non-league level, which is so difficult. And that's what the boys want to do, basically. They want to play football, don't they?
I'm just glad you agree with me, Tony. That's why I'm all for 4G, but Keith's not, of course. But
well, Keith don't want to play football. That's why, Dave. He wants to knock it long, doesn't he?
That's how we beat him at our place. If you remember that game, yeah.
Oh, you bullied us.
We did. We did.
You played well that night, mate. You played well. You deserved it. You deserved it.
So, Tom, moving sort of slightly, but with your career, you started at Fulham.
Yes, started at Fulham.
And a debut against one of my favourite sides in Leyton Orient.
Yeah, that was in. It was what you two will be too young to know this, but it was like a pipe opener to the season called the Anglo-Scottish Cup.
Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, I do.
So you had English and Scottish teams within a league and then playing in a final. So, yeah, against Leyton Orient, I was 16 years of age. And up front against me, Dave, you'll probably know him. Jerry Queen, have you heard of him?
No.
And Derek Posse.
Yeah, I've heard Posse, yeah.
And Laurie Cunningham was playing and all.
Wow.
No, Laurie Cunningham, yeah.
And Tony Grealish, yeah.
True.
And
True. You replaced in that game. You replaced Bobby Moore.
Yeah, they thought I was a far better player than him, and they had to get him out. Yeah.
What year was that, Tone?
Oh, blimey, Keith. Well, good one. I'm not sure if it was 76 or 77, but that was my Anglo-Scottish game. Morrow was in America playing in the American leagues. He came back, and more or less I sat on the bench all the next season, and I was captain in the reserve team, like captain in a lot of very good senior players, because senior players then, if they weren't in the first team, they had to play in the reserves in midweek. Great learning curve for me, because I was playing up against top players, Arsenal, Spurs, Chelsea, whatever. Kid at the back, captain of the reserves. And then the next season, Morrow retired, and I started the season full on. Yeah, and that was it. Now, all regular through.
I can't remember if my good friend Tony Berman, who's obviously was the Dartford manager, played at Charlton. His highlight obviously was on the big match against Fulham with Bobby Moore and George Best and that. And I'm not sure if you was on the bench.
I don't think I was on the bench for that one. I remember playing against my actual league debut was against Charlton. I don't think Tony was playing in that one. But up front was Derek Owls.
Derek Owls, yeah.
Derek Owls and Mike Flanagan. And Owls. Yeah, they were. What a front pair they were. They scored plenty of goals in the old, what we called second division, you know.
So, Derek come and done an after dinner speech with Theo Foley at our place a few years ago. He's a character as well.
Yeah, he's a character. But what a goal scorer he was. He had a great left foot, as did Mike Flanagan. So Flan was the footballer. Derek Owls was quite a robust player up front, but there was a great pairing together, you know. Don't think they actually got on with each other.
They hated each other. They said that.
That was off the pitch, but on the pitch they did get on. They were excellent, yeah.
What was it like being around somebody like Bobby Moore,
though? I find it hard to describe now because it was all kind of surreal at the time. And when you're starting off in football and you're apprentice at 17 years of age and you're in a dressing room with Bobby Moore, George Best and Rodney Marsh, you know, you kind of think it's the norm and it's going to happen for the rest of your life, but it doesn't, does it? You know, you don't. And at the end of my career, I won the Premier League and I had players in that team thinking that would be the norm. But of course, they didn't win it again, did they? But Morrow was like, for me, is who I modelled myself on. I'm nowhere near as good as him, but he was like footballing royalty. He was the same to what he would be in like an interview with you guys as he would be like meeting the Queen and getting presented with the FA Cup. He was different class. He was a man for all seasons and the best player, best central defender. Or we used to call them sweepers then. I don't know if you remember, but he was the best player alongside a big centre half, top player.
When I watched Escape to Victory the other day, and he was on that. So obviously, it's a feature. He was on, and you're sitting there still watching him, going, "Wow."
Yeah.
Well, I'd love to have been on that. You know what I mean? It was unbelievable. I'll tell you a little story about that actually, because I've done a little thing with. Remember Mike Summerby?
Yeah, he was on there. Yeah, Man City as well.
So he was on it. So he was Morrow's one of his best pals. So they got called up to do Escape to Victory and had to fly out to Hungary, where it was being filmed. So they got on the plane and they got to the back and it was a big jolly up and they sat at the back of the plane, Mike Summerby and Bobby Moore, having a few vodka and tonics. Plane gets delayed, taking off. So they're sitting on the back, having a chat with the hostesses and all that. Where you stand when you're going over there, you know, we're filming, doing Escape to Victory. Sylvester Stallone, Michael Caine up the back, having a jolly up, everybody getting round. Because that's where it all happened, wasn't it, in those days, at the back of the plane. So anyway, by the time they take off and a 2.5 hour flight and all that, they're a little bit merry, you know, 3 parts to the wind. So they go and get off the plane and Mike Summerby goes, Morrow, hold on, don't get off the plane yet. There's thousands of fans waiting on the runway. Have a look. Morrow's gone, he's all a little bit dishevelled and everything. And he's perfect, isn't he? So gets his shirt on, does his shirt up, puts a tie on, all that. So give it 10 minutes, Mike, like have a couple of glasses of water, a cup of coffee and all that. They go out there. There's no one there when they go out there. They didn't know Pele was on the front of the plane.
Yeah.
But I mean,
That's a true story. That's a true story.
You talk about being around the likes of him and of course Georgie Best. The one thing that always annoys me, I think, when you hear people talk about the best player ever, times out of 10, Bestie's name never gets brought up, or if it's always like some Pele and Maradona and now Messi, Ronaldo, and that. But from what I've seen, and I never got to see him play, other than what you see on the TV and stuff like that, he was just absolutely on a different planet to anybody else, as far as I'm concerned.
Well, I was, while we've been in lockdown and all that, you watch everything. I've seen the documentary a couple of times, and I still watched it again, the George Best documentary, and it had me in tears again because, like, what a lost soul he was, But I think the only reason he doesn't get compared to them is he didn't have the longevity in his career, and he was sort of finished at 26, 28 years of age. But I can assure you, boys, I played with him at Fulham, and I played with some great players and against some great players, and he still remains the best I've ever played with or against, and that was at Fulham, let alone at Man United when he was there. So you can imagine what he was like at Man United and how fit he was. But every day in training, I just used to see things with a football that I've never seen in my life. And what he would do now with the footballs of today and the pitches of today and guys not being able to kick him or challenge him, he would be an absolute sensation. And even when, he was on the beer a little bit towards the end of his career and was at Fulham, if he came in and trained and we'd done a running session, he'd be at the front. He was just a phenomenon. He was unbelievable.
I remember seeing I think he did a comedy set, didn't he, with Rodney Marsh at the time, and I still remember I used to have it on video, and it just shows you how old I am. But I had it on video and with him and Marshy, and I remember him telling some story. I don't think it was himself or Rodney was saying the story about how they were called in and told how much they were going to be earning for the following season. And he comes in and he says you're going to get, I can't remember the money, but he says like 50 quid playing, and in the off season you're going to get paid 30 quid. And he just said, you got any questions to ask? He says, yeah. He says, why is whatever the other player was that had just been in, why has he got 60 quid and 60 quid? He said, because he's a better player than you. And he turns into, yeah, but not in the bloody winter, he ain't. But it was the way,
you only mucked up the punchline.
But it was just superb. It was just the way you could see that the two had, complete and utter sort of respect for each other in that, and I think.
Well, Rodney's now 75, and he co-hosts a show on American radio. So he quite often rings me up because I do all the Sky commentaries and everything, and asks me for all my information on the teams and everything. And we do live broadcasts, and he rings me up at all kinds of hours. But when he does come over, we quite often go out to lunch and a bit of dinner with a guy called Les Strong, who was an old teammate of mine and a mate of Marshy's. And honestly, Marshy is 75. The marbles are still there. He still looks great, and he's just fantastic. The stories, that I can't tell on here, I'd love to tell.
Tell us the player that that don't get mentioned too much with you, Tony. Like I said, you've gone through and you said, you're Bobby Moore, you're Best, and you can go your West Ham. But you mentioned it before when you won the Premiership. Is Alan Shearer?
Yeah, well, he'd be
Shearer to Bobby Moore. There is a bit of a difference in a timescale as well.
Well, it was quite, because I played like in different eras. It kind of spanned the whole lot, didn't it? So, people say best players you played with, and you go, well, best Marshmore, obviously. Then I go like Alan Devonshire was at West Ham. He, you both know now as the manager of Maidenhead, and doesn't get near enough credit for what he should get and the job he's done down there. So Alan Devonshire, and then I'll go Alan Shearer. Alan Shearer, Blackburn. But Shearer was just what you want to be. A number 9, a man's man, didn't take no crap in the tunnels and anything like that. And, you'd be walking out with the opposition and you could see fear in the opposition just looking at him, and he wouldn't even give him a look, not a second look. But he's a proper bloke, Alan, and like as goal scoring goes, like you boys have seen him on the TV, but in training, could he strike the ball? You know what I mean? Absolute great striker of a ball. Always remember his sayings: hit the floor, you score. Go across the goalkeeper, You hit the floor, you score. And I've seen him, well, all the goals he scored at Blackburn, but if you watched him in training as well, and Tim Flowers used to go, oh, that was lucky, that went under my body. And he went, yeah, so was the last 5 I just took in the last 6 shots. You know what I mean? Hit the floor, you score. Great saying. And every time he hit it and hit the back of the net in training, he didn't do it in games, he used to go, bang, like that. Oh, we used to laugh. Absolute laugh. What a player, though. Unbelievable in the air. Only about, I would say Alan's about 5'10".
Yeah.
But his timing, he just used to get up a split second before you, because I played against him as well. And as you jumped, he got up like a split second before you. And as you jumped, he used to get the carry from your body to elevate himself, rather like a line out in rugby union. You know, when they lift them up?
Yeah.
Like that. He was like that. His timing for headers. And he was one of the few guys that could shape headers. He would head it and he'd get a curl on it. It'd come from the right or the left and it'd curl in the far corner. Got a great shape on his headers. No one really looks at that, but it's a great skill heading the ball.
Always remember, I don't know if it was the championship winning season or the one after or whatever, but the one thing that always reminds me of him, other than goal scoring, was the time when you played Arsenal and he sent Lee Dixon in the crowd and went on to score.
He sent a few in the crowd.
Yeah. Listen, if he kicks an Arsenal player in the crowd, I'm happy with that. Just again, you must have been asked this loads of times as well, but we're talking about obviously pressure, and you've got non-league pressure and things like that, and we talk about the Premiership and you won. But that day at Anfield, what must be going through your minds? Obviously, then, especially when you go a goal, you know, when Jamie scores as well.
Well, I was all right. I was sitting on my arse on the bench, wasn't I? So I was okay.
I see it on telly. Yeah, it was shown the other day.
But it's quite funny because I'm sitting right by the monitor, which showing you the West Ham game as well, which was going on at the same time. So obviously our game's gone on. Shearer's gone bang 1-0. Then they've gone 1-0, went 2-1 up, and I'm having a look at the other game behind the gaffer, Kenny, and I'm going, what a effing save that was, Ludo, like, you know, and he's pretending he can't hear me. McCloskey was pulling off save after save, one off the line, one part, and I'm going, and he's turned around and he goes, will you effing shut up, you know, like, so anyway, we're going on, and their game finished before ours, fractionally before ours, and I said to the gaffer, you want me to shut up now? Yeah. And I went, West Ham drew, we won the league. How was that? And everything, it just went pandemonium. It was a great thing because Liverpool beat us, because Liverpool obviously wanted to win the game, and we won the league as well. And Kenny being the ex-Liverpool manager, all the fans stayed in, all the Liverpool fans, when we done the lap of honour and clapped us. Obviously, because we'd displaced Man United. I don't think they were lovers of Man United, were they either? But unbelievable. I tell you, the party afterwards, it was... Was that just about sobered up now? 25 years later.
was that one of the best? Was that one of the best grounds to go to as an away ground?
Liverpool, yeah. And when you look at it now, Dave, I don't know if you've been at it since that newsstand's been done, either of you. Yeah. But I do. I obviously, I'm very privileged where I go in the commentary positions. So I sit at the front row of the top tier where we do the commentary positions. Where the players run out from, that side, if you're thinking of it from a TV aspect, as people would do listening on the show. And I never thought I'd see the day when I'm on the top tier of a stand at the front and I'm looking down on the roof of the Kop, because I always thought the Kop was huge, massive. Yeah. And it was in my day. But this stand is twice as high as the Kop. It's unbelievable, you know, the way it is. And it's a steepness that you're looking down on the roof of the Kop. It's unbelievable.
I went there last August for we went around on a tour because I've always wanted to go. I went round on a tour around there last year, and even though there was no one in there, I don't know what it was about the place. It was just the as you just said, it's a lot smaller and a lot more compact than what I imagined it to be. But also as well, there's some kind of atmosphere in there. The minute you walk out and you get into where they take you out into where the directors' boxes are and down pitch side, there's just a really weird atmosphere. It's just like you just feel like you're a Liverpool fan the minute you walk out of that front. It's just a really sort of, I don't know, I'd hate to think what it'd be like when it's full, and I'd love to be there when it's full as well, like especially on a weeknight. But the atmosphere there was just incredible. And so it was only just people just walking around on the tour.
Well, I know you went there on that kind of a day, but if you can, I don't know if you've been there either, Keith, but if you can on a match day, just go there because, before the players run out and they do You'll Never Walk Alone, it's something to behold. But when we used to play, obviously, it was jam-packed to the rafters. The crowd was swaying behind the goals. And it was we used to get there about an hour and a quarter before the game and go on the pitch. And it was mobbed out then, absolutely mobbed out. But you have a look at grounds now and people don't start going in till 10 minutes before the game, do they? I reckon a quarter of the crowd are in there. Then all of a sudden, the last 3 quarters come in maybe the last 10 minutes before the kickoff. It's incredible. But that was happening an hour and a quarter before our games. It was brilliant.
So, Tom, when you look back over your career, and obviously everything you've just said, your Rodney Marsh, your Bobby Moore, and all that, and your West Ham days, and we just spoke about Blackburn, and you look at that Premiership medal. Would you say that was the highlight, or have you got something else?
No. I was only at Blackburn for a season, so that was it would have been much better, more poignant. Premier League season in we missed out on the last weekend of the season.
Is he freezing through me, Dave, or you?
He's freezing for me as well. So yeah, we'll pick him up again.
Well, I'd rather have won it with West Ham. Yeah, it was a great promotion with Fulham from the old 3rd division to the 2nd. We drew against Lincoln, and that was a full house. But I'll get as much from that as winning the Premier League because obviously those times are great. And making your debut is you can never forget it because you're just making your mum and dad so proud, and you're proud that you've done it for your mum and dad really, who followed me everywhere. So debuts are much more in it. It's loads of highs. There's loads of lows as well, by the way. So but it makes the highs that much better.
Yeah.
So you've done all that. You've done your obviously your Fulham, and your history is unbelievable. And obviously your boy started playing at Gibbs. What made you get and go to Walton Casuals, and why do you still do it?
Because I'm absolutely loopy, I think. I don't know why I'm doing it now. I'll tell you what, because you don't get a lot of thanks for it, and that's what wrangles with me sometimes, because I know what I do and what my directors do to keep our club afloat each season, just to keep playing going in the Walton area. So I know what I do, but all you get is moans and groans. Oh, the tea's cold, or the burgers ain't been done enough, or I can't believe there's no one on the turnstile at 1 o'clock. You know what I mean? Hold on a minute, we got all on volunteers here and everything like that. So it pees me off a bit that you don't get that little bit. But I know what I'm doing. I'm giving something a little bit of something back, but. I get a lot of joy out of it, boys. I mean, as I told you, at the end of my career, I went to Maidenhead and I was player coach with Alan Devonshire. Yeah. He was the manager, and we won they won their first trophy in 60 odd years. Can't remember what one it was. And all the lads were jumping about, and I was jumping about, and they was going, "God, it was only 2 seasons ago you won the Premier League. What are you jumping about for?" I went, "We've won a cup. This means as much to me with you boys as it does, winning a league with whoever, Shearer or whoever, because it's that team thing." But I got involved through my cousin, who was a player there at Walton Casuals and then went on to manage. And I started helping him out because I was doing TV and radio part-time. And then I started taking over the reins of everything. And, chairman basically means is you're responsible for raising the money along with your board of directors. And I'm so privileged that I've got some great friends that help me along. I couldn't do it without them. Actually, I'll probably be the smaller cog, and they're more than me.
When you're doing a game for Sky, and obviously what you just said about the burgers and that, and you could be at Premier Ground, do you actually sit there sometimes and go to them? You want to see what the other half look like as well, and do you talk to sort of other people like yourself and go, look, you could actually make a big difference to a club like VCD and Grays and things like that?
Yeah, it's a shame, because if there was a small donation from Premier League players, and it wouldn't be a lot out their wage packets, or if there was a government, I've always said, like, sometimes they give these tax reliefs to players for different things that they put it in. But if they gave these tax relief for players for putting it for the better of football down below, like non-league football, then they might be willing to do it. Like they're saying they want to do things now, wage deferrals, wage cuts, things like that. But if there was such a thing from the government that they could get it sort of untaxed. If a player's on 150 grand a week, what's £1,000 a week to put in the non-league football if he didn't get taxed on it?
Yeah.
And you're talking about quite a few players that are on a lot of money that £1,000 a week wouldn't matter much. I would say now I would do it, and people say it's all right for you, you finish playing and all that. But if I knew that it was for the betterment of everything, I genuinely believe I would do it, because that's why we do the fundraising now.
The one thing I think, and again, I do think some Premiership footballers do get a bit of a tough time at the moment. They should take this pay cut X and Y. Yeah, they do earn some money, but what I think could be an idea is that even if every one of them was given, like being made an ambassador of a non-league club. So, and they all have to do, so just for once a year, they might have to just go to the club once and do an after dinner speech for nothing, or give the club something to raffle. That they only have to do one thing per season. That would fund a club like ours for the year. Yeah,
and if there was a local boy from your area, for instance, Keith, there's some local boys in our area, and I'm lucky my boy sort of trains a couple of the boys one-on-one. He's done some stuff with young Declan and Declan Rice, and he's always gives us shirts and everything like that and everything. But yeah, I think you're right, but they should remember it's a short career, and if you can help someone along the way, as when I was a senior pro, I quite love bumping into players who were younger, and they said, "You helped me so much," and I think, well, what did I do? But just being nice isn't difficult.
Yeah.
Being nice isn't difficult.
I'm not even saying that. I'm not saying even financially. They just got to attach their name to Walton Casuals. So say, like you said, Declan Rice. You could even put down sponsors or the ambassador of Walton Casuals. I think you could actually, your club itself could do a lot off the back of that.
Yeah, I think locally for you, you'd have to think someone who came from the ranks around your way. I don't know who grew up around your way. With VCD and everything, but it would certainly be a benefit. And I don't think it really hurts them. And where they've got it wrong with all this stuff about all like wage cuts and everything like that. No, we're not asking you when the players come out and said, "Oh, we're getting taxed so much, we're getting paid by the NHS." Yes, you are getting taxed a lot, but by the way, you've got to earn a lot to get taxed. That's why you're getting taxed a lot. What we're looking for is donations. Just give a donation. You don't have to say who you are or how much you've given, but donations, not before tax, after tax. And I'm not saying the world, but just donations. And rather than, I know a lot's going to the NHS, and we'll be working on that as a club as well. When we raise funds, we'll be working together with them. But I think the football people should stay together as well. And I'm not talking about Premier League. I'm talking about all the lower levels, 3 down to 7 in particular, because we need a lot of help this year. I tell you, I think there's going to be a lot of clubs that go to the wall. I think you're going to be very surprised.
Which will be a massive shame to the whole of the pyramid, because we that's the thing about English football. We are a pyramid.
Yeah, we are, and we're in the sort of the lower reaches of it. We've gone through a couple of promotions, and that's in 15 years that I've been there, so it's difficult to gain promotions, and we went up via the playoffs one time. You have to have a little bit of luck in that, but certainly, to get where we are and have the ability to get academies, attract professional players, who want to experience that man football thing, that's what we've had to do. And I just wish anyone who's coming into the game now, or any chairman, any board of directors and managers, managers who want to gain experience, do it at this level. Really do it at this level. Learn how to win games. Learn how to win games, and learn how to, bring footballers on. Get the best out of footballers. Because, all right, Keith, when you finish in your managing days or whatever, they might say, "Oh yeah, he done well. We got us promotion out of level 2 or level 3 or whatever he's done." But if one of them comes up and goes, that man had a lot of influence in my football career and made me the person that he is. I get a lot more out of that than winning promotions. Do you know what I mean?
But what the
Helping
lad we
people.
had on before is a prime example.
He's a great. Actually, I turned you on. I listened to him for half hour. He was a good lad, wasn't he?
Yeah. We just had Peter Val from coming. He said slightly late tonight, guys. Glad I didn't miss Tony Gale. Great interview. Love his passion for the game. He's an absolute legend. And somebody else has come in and said, could you ask Tony if he's ever played at Holker Street?
Where?
Holker Street. Holker Street. Holker Street.
That ain't Barrow's Grand, is it?
Whose ground's that?
No idea.
I don't know. I think it might be Barrow's.
Possibly.
Is that Barrow's?
Yeah.
I hope you ain't. It's the middle of nowhere.
No, I tell you what, because I dropped down to Division 3 for one season with Fulham, there wasn't many grounds that I actually missed out playing in the 92. Obviously, grounds are new grounds now and all that. But when there was all the old grounds, there was only about 6 I hadn't played at, and then obviously through me 2,000 and odd live commentaries I've nearly done them all. But Barrow was one that I didn't. If that is Barrow, Dave, I haven't played there. Tell that young man I haven't. My missus is saying, yeah, she's just checked it up over there. She's quicker than you, Keith.
I said it was Barrow. She's bound to be more knowledgeable than me. You've seen me manage.
You weren't cheating, was you Googling?
No, how can I Google? You're on my phone. I'm talented, not that good. I tell you the one thing, the biggest question I wanted to ask you, because I know the sort of person you are with socialising, and obviously with what we're going through and all the struggle. Look, how are you coping, not socialising and having a beer?
We're doing all right, love, aren't we? Pass that bottle of vodka beer.
Oh, I've done mine.
No,
you do notice how much you miss it, don't you? That sort of side of it.
I mean, you've seen me, you two. I've actually lost weight. I mean, I put on a bit of timber since I finished playing, obviously. And when I'm going here, there and everywhere, do these social events like you've been talking about, Keith, doing the TVs, it's very difficult to stop on a motorway and ask for a chicken Caesar salad, isn't it? Or something like that. So, I put on a bit of timber. But as I've been at home, I've cut out the booze. I'm not really a home drinker. Pass the vodka. But no, I've lost a bit of timber, so I'm looking forward to going back. They won't recognise me.
I mean,
listen, you've been brilliant coming on again for us, and like I said, there's loads of people. We've kept going the show throughout just to give people a couple of hours of us talking nonsense, but to have someone like yourself on, I think a lot of people, and we've had players on as well that sit there and go, do you know what? We've said about you with Bobby Moore at a young age, and then Alan Shearer, and it just gives people something to aspire to and want to play.
Yeah, I mean, and I have to say to all those young men, who, if there are any young men watching non-league footballers and all that, I love my non-league football. Keith Rowland at Averley, what a great season he's had, hasn't he? Tried to nick him, but he wouldn't come over to Surrey because it affected his postal work. I couldn't believe it. God, but there's some great people in non-league football, and I'll tell you what, there's some really good players. And if there's any advice I would give to any youngsters out there, like people watching, people like me are watching. People like Graham Ricks, I saw at one of my non-league games last year. He was doing a bit of scouting work for some pro clubs, and they're all looking at these clubs down the levels. And it doesn't matter what level you're at, they're looking, because there's some uncut diamonds down there, I'm telling you. And I've seen them, and without knowing attitudes and, the off-the-field responsibilities of players or anything like that, just looking at players, and I think, well, I'm doing pro games every week. You ain't far off being a pro player, but obviously you don't know what they're doing off the pitch or how dedicated they are to it. But if they just keep that dedication and keep going, there's some terrific players down there, and you could get noticed. It don't matter, Ian Wright. Look at Ian Wright in the old days. Blimey, Righty coming through from non-league football.
Yeah,
you'd have never thought it. So hopefully some of them uncut diamonds are coming down to us, because we could do with a few.
Well, Alan Wright's just come in. He said, Tony Gale, what a great man and a fantastic speaker. I really enjoyed him. But I mean, Tony, how good is it to have your boy back though, managing the team?
Yeah, he's had his problems. He thought the grass would be greener on the other side when he left for Staines. He went to Staines. But he didn't realise what a profile he had in our area and how well he'd done in the community and everything. But I just said to him, look, do what you got to do. But he's back now, and he's enjoying it. And,
that'll make him a better manager, though, Tone.
Sorry, Keith?
That'll make him a better manager, I think.
Yeah, it's hard to look. I've got all the experience in the world, but I'm his dad, so he won't listen, will he? But you know what it's like with kids. Even when they get older, the last person they want to listen to is their old man. But when someone else says it, it's like, oh, do you know what he said? Oh, well, yeah, I told you that 4 years ago. Do you know what I mean? Or something like that. But he's got a passion for the game that I haven't seen in a lot of young lads or a lot of young men. Obviously, you got it, and you've got to have it. But trying to marry that up with the jobs that you've got as well off the pitch, I've got nothing but respect for all of you. And when you're all standing on the touchline having a go at each other and he's having a pop at you or you're having a pop at him and everything, what's good about non-league football, you go in the bar afterwards and guess what? You can have a pint and you can have a laugh, can't you?
Yeah, it's true.
There's very few managers that get the ump and go, oh, I meant that because he's an horrible so-and-so and all that. Non-league football still got that and I love it. I really love it. Yeah.
So,
no,
it's been an absolute pleasure. I mean, literally, listening to you and talking to you tonight always is when we get the chance to talk to you. And I must admit, still having a contact and looking at my contacts and seeing Tony Gale's name on it, I can't believe from a shop, co-op shop manager to have somebody as classy as you in my mobile phone is incredible. But
Dave, I'm pleased to have you in my phone, mate. Don't worry about that.
But in all fairness,
a geezer with a surname called Square, I've got to have that.
Yeah, you put him down as Rubik's.
We're looking through the square window, Keith. Now, listen, boys. Pleasure talking to you two. Keep that going, what you're doing.
We will do, mate.
Keep it going.
Thanks a lot. Go back to your vodka, mate. Enjoy it.
And it'd be great if we could pick your brains at some time as well to see if you've got any of your good friends that might be able to come and help us out as well and come on and have a chat with us as well. That'd be fantastic. If you've got anybody that you could put our way, that would be fantastic.
No worries, mate. You may make sure you give them an easy time, though, because they're not all as accommodating as me. They're all boring. You know what I mean? All right.
Take care. Stay safe.
Thanks, mate. Thanks,
See you soon.
See you later.
Take care, mate.
Well.
Bye.
Keep well.
Bye.
And you.
Ta-da.
You got to push the little red button.
He's got to do.
Oh, well, he's done it.
What
a lad.
I mean, I'll be honest with you. He's one of these guys you see. I think he says it himself. That certain people you see on the TV, and then when you get to speak to them, they're not the same. But that man, I've got so much time. We met him. I've met him once when we was up at Aveley, and to be really honest with you, absolutely without a shadow of doubt, my favourite person we've ever had on the show. Full stop. I think he's just.
Yeah, listen.